Hey there, it's Mike Tramp, and you're listening to White Line Fever, where rock and roll is still alive like it always has been, and it always will be.
Welcome back to the program. Our next guest, how about this? It's Cherie Currie, about to tour Australia. By the time you hear this, she'll be in Australia, I'd imagine. I'd imagine. How are you, Cherie? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Steve, for having me. I'm so glad to be with you.
Now, I would imagine you've been doing a lot of press for this tour. You might be learning as much from us as we're learning from you, because, am I right in saying it's your first trip here and you probably don't know much about the audience, and maybe your set list is a little bit up in the air? You don't know what people know and what they don't know?
Well, yes. I mean, first of all, I wanted to come to Australia for 40 years, and I have been hooked on all your television shows. I just always knew I would come. I thought as a tourist, but so I'm so blessed that I'm going to be able to play for you. It's a blessing.
Now, you're a writer, which is awesome, because so am I, but also you're a musician and a chainsaw artist, which I know is very quirky, and they love that sort of stuff on TV. How do you kind of split your time? I mean, do you just kind of become a musician when the gigs come up, or do you work at it every day? You make sure that you do a little bit of all three or at all times?
No, that hasn't been the way it has been for me as far as singing. I don't even warm up. It's just so funny. I just have always been able to just sing. And I've been being a chainsaw artist for the last 15 years. I really put the music behind me. I would do shows here and there, but it was the movie The Runaways that Joan invited me to open for her at a pretty large gig, which I did, and I got offered a record deal that evening.
Wow!
After the show.
Wow!
So I just decided that I loved being on the stage again. So Matt Sorumak actually was playing with me. Of course, you know him from Guns N' Roses and Velvet Revolver, and he was just amazing. And he and I made a record together with a bunch of cool stars. In fact, the Veronicas as well.
All right, wow.
On a few songs. What great gals they are.
Wow, wow.
And you know, Billy Corrigan from Smashing Pumpkins wrote a duet, and of course Slash and Duff were on it, as well as even Juliette Lewis. So that album's coming out in September. But you know, I just got so excited, I even forgot what the question was.
No, I did. I was talking about how your answer was far more interesting than my question, so forget the question. How did you get all these guys involved on the record? How does it work?
Well, it was Matt, because I've been out of the music business for so long, but all of these wonderful artists, Brody Dale as well, really wanted to participate in this record. And little did I know how much the Runaways had influenced so many people, and that made me feel so good. But then that record was shelved for 5 years.
Wow.
So now I went on tour on my own. I left my management and went on tour and did 4 tours of the U.S. and in Canada, and went and just did a tour of the U.K., which in November, which was awesome. Made a live record with Susie Quattro, guested on this live record that I did.
Wow.
I mean, what an amazing experience that was. And so now I've got my live album coming out when I'm going to see you guys, and I've got you know, the Blackheart record with Matt Sorum coming out in September, supposedly.
So it's called Blackheart, which is no coincidence with Joan. It's just a coincidence, or is it?
No, it's the label. We have.
Oh, right, Blackheart Records, John Blackheart Records. Sorry. So what's the album called, and why have you managed to get it out there now after it's been shelved for so long?
Well, they wanted to put it out now.
Oh.
So I negotiated with them instead of my lawyer, who I had to let go. 2 lawyers, actually, and it just was taking too long. And then I went and did my tours and came back and decided that I would negotiate the deal. And so I did. And I'm really happy because it's a really cool album. And I just really didn't expect it to see the light of day. So fingers crossed, you know, it'll come out. I don't know the title of it yet. So we will see. We will see.
Okay. Welcome to the program. It's a brand new episode, but our first guest is someone you heard in the last program, and that's Cherie Currie, formerly the Runaways, and we're speaking to her about her upcoming record, as yet untitled, and about her tour plans. And Cherie, you did mention that the Runaways movie just changed things for you, and perhaps for everyone who was in the band. Was it all positive, or was there any negative aspects to the movie and the impact it had?
No, not at all. I think that, my goodness, it's kind of tame what we went through almost in a way compared to, what people go through today. Even television is far more racy than that movie was, I think. But so because I wore a corset for 3 minutes, singing Cherry Bomb, people still talk about how racy I was, and I think, really? Compared to television these days? Really? Or even Beyonce or any of these people that are on stage now, they wear far less clothes than the Runaways ever did.
Yeah.
But, it just times have changed so much. I do love the fact that so many girl bands are coming out now, and kids just have this feeling that they can do anything, and for me, that's the way I've always wanted them to feel, because they can.
Yeah, the movie is based on your book, and now Lita's put a book out as well. Have you read Lita's book yet, or?
I haven't read her book. I'm actually having dinner with her in about a week, but I have read particular segments. Boy, she holds nothing back, and it's a very brave book from what I've read. Did
the movie bring you together with the other girls? Did it bring you closer together? Because I know there's this very highly publicised difference of opinion with Jackie Fox about those events with Kim Fowley. Did the movie have a sort of a bonding effect with you and the other girls, or is there still a bit of resentment and ill feeling over that issue?
Well, no. I mean, Jackie, unfortunately, when we reached out to her to participate in the film, she went to John and Art Linson and was demanding just huge amounts of money, and also she was demanding to be a producer. And they tried to reason with her, but she was holding fast. And John and Art Linson, of course, they made films like Fight Club and Into the Wild. I mean, countless great movies, and they were having none of it. And they just threw her out of the film entirely. Wouldn't even use her name, no matter how much me and Joan tried to change their mind.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Lita, she was married at the time, and her husband didn't even let her read the contract, or told her not to read the contract, so she was basically out of the film. And that was too bad, because it would have been a completely different movie.
Yeah.
But there was nothing that Joan and I could do with that.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? Exactly the reason why I became close to Kim was to fix all those feelings that I had with him as a young girl. And I reached out to Joan when she was having dinner with Lita to ask Lita to meet up with me. I hadn't seen her in 30 years, and Lita was thrilled to do it. And next thing I knew, we were friends. And she was coming to my kid's show. Jake, of course, he is a very successful band, Maudlin Strangers, and we did a lot of things together, and I did a duet with her out of her Christmas single, and then I invited her to work with me on this record, on Reverie. So I really strongly suggest that people, when there are things that haunt them, and if they can do it, reach out and fix it, because there's no reason for you to continue to live with all those bad feelings,
Yeah, I want to talk about some esoteric things like that in the third part of the interview, but just more sort of mundane, the whole reunion thing, even though you seem to be closest to Joan, and Joan worked with you on the movie, Joan seems to be the one who's less inclined to even do a run of shows. That's the way it looks from the outside. Is that the way it is from your perspective?
Well, it's funny, because a little over 20 years ago, Lita had reached out to us to convince Joan to do a Runaways reunion, and we did. So we with Kenny Laguna basically at the helm, he he secured a record deal and a tour, and then Lita she doesn't get along with Kenny, and she just walked from that. And so now she's come back and she does. I've always wanted a reunion, and I've worked with absolutely every single one of the girls since the band dissolved. I've worked with Jackie, Sandy, Lita, and Joan separately, but I've performed with all of them. So I really did see a Runaways reunion happening, but now I don't believe it will, because Lita and Joan just can't seem to figure that out. So I now say, nah, it's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah. The power of reunions. I know you won't be as big as Guns N' Roses, but you look at what's happening there at the moment with basically, Duff and Slash hired by Axl's band, and they just got money falling out of the sky. it's a big business, reunions, isn't it, at the moment?
Right. Well, I always thought that we had to have a reunion. So I mean, it was very, very disappointing for me over a number of years. I mean, for 20 years actually, when we had it in the bag and Lita walked, and so that was very difficult. And then now it just seemed like the right time. Actually, 5 years ago would have been the perfect time when the movie came out. But I can't control how other people feel. So it was very important for me to just say, you know what, this isn't going to happen, and walk away from it. And that's really what I've done. But the one thing that I can do is perform Runaway songs that Lita and Joan will never do, and give the audiences a chance to hear those songs.
Awesome. Okay, welcome back. Third part of our interview with Cherie Currie, and as usual, the third part, we're squeezed for time. But I want to ask you some sort of broad brush questions, Cherie. I wondered, you've been a drug and alcohol counsellor. The expression, if I knew then what I know now, I wondered, have you actually sat down and maybe done a shopping list of what those things are, what you may have learned about human nature over the years, and about the nature of the music business, the stuff that you wish you knew back then? Have you got a few things in mind?
I definitely do. Number one, don't ever ask anybody's opinion. And if they give their opinion, don't listen to them. Because you've got a path in life, like they have a path, so they can't see your path. So even asking is going to be a big mistake. Anytime I've listened to other people or did what other people wanted me to do, I failed miserably. When I did what was in my heart, what that little voice in my head was telling me to do, I've never failed. Not once. So my strongest advice is, you know in your heart and in your soul what you're doing on this planet. You know what your path is. Don't ask anybody to understand or to believe in you. You just believe in yourself and go for it, and you will make it happen. You start listening to other people, and it's going to be a disaster.
How do incidents like being kidnapped by a stalker change you? Do you let them change you? Do you try to learn from these things, or do you try to forget them?
Oh, no. I mean, for me, I was so blessed that I survived, because I shouldn't have. And so I walk away from this. I see people that are so much worse off, people that have lost their lives, number one, but people that have been maimed forever from their kidnapping. So I got away injured, but I got away alive and with all my limbs and everything else. So I just am grateful. And I think I've been speaking out about it because it happened when I was 17 years old. I've been speaking out about it ever since it happened. And I really felt that it was important for me to share my experience. And I did in both my books. And I walk away each time I talk about it just a much stronger person. I mean, I'm a survivor, complete survivor. And I am not a victim. Even though people would like to argue with me on that, I did make mistakes. I got in that car. I didn't listen to that voice in my head, even though I was around my friends and even a guard there. Something told me in my head, you shouldn't do this. And we always never listen. And that was my mistake. And sometimes I even find saying that out loud on social media will get you in a lot of trouble, because that was my mistake. But take responsibility for those mistakes. But I think that, I'm just glad that I'm around, that I could tell people it's okay, and you survived, and good for you, and you're going to be a better person for it.